Hello, welcome to the first video of our mini-series, Creating a Magical Place for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Students. Today, I'll be interviewing Dr. Todd Czubek, who is a professor at Boston University. I chose him for this conversation because he wrote an article about how the deaf world can be compared to Hogwarts. It's really cool and quite magical. Come along with us. Are you ready? Okay, so first, before we dive into the magical world, I'd like to ask some questions about you. Tell me about yourself, your profession, your family.
Sure. You mentioned it briefly. I work at Boston University, and my role has a focus mostly on graduate students who are preparing to become teachers for deaf children.
Wonderful.
Another aspect of my job involves working with deaf schools and programs all over the United States and throughout the world, working to establish bilingual programs. More specifically, I focus on how to create, encourage, and develop language skills in both ASL and English. And you wanted to know about my family?
Your family, yes. I want to know if you're deaf or hearing, and your family as well.
I am hearing, yes, and my parents are deaf. I'm fortunate to come from a large deaf family. My siblings are also deaf, making them fourth-generation deaf. My parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, great-grandparents, and many more, specifically on my mother's side, are a deaf family. As for my siblings and me, there are 4 of us. I'm the oldest. Then came my brother, who is also hearing. Then my other brother, who is deaf. And then my baby sister, who is deaf. 2 and 2. I myself am married, and my wife and I have 2 children. One is deaf and one is hearing.
Oh.
My oldest is hearing, and my youngest is deaf.
I'm curious to know what your first language was. Was it ASL or English?
Well, my first language was ASL. I think having grown up in a deaf environment, in combination with the fact that children are able to express themselves in ASL before they can do so in spoken English, naturally allowed me to pick up signing first. In my earliest memories of communicating, it was all signing first.
I'm sure the audience is watching you and wondering that if your first language was ASL, how did you learn spoken English?
I think it was a little more difficult because language acquisition can come naturally, right? This happens often for those who grow up in deaf homes and deaf environments. How does one develop speech? But keep in mind that the larger world around them is a hearing one. Access to sound occurs in a multitude of places. I do have some hearing family members, but so is the world itself. I was given sign language, and I was able to develop and access that visually, and I can also hear. I was able to develop both languages that way naturally. And I wouldn't say there was any concerted effort to do so. I think as most children in deaf families can attest, it happens naturally.
Right. Amazing. Some people will ask me that for my 3 hearing kids. How did they learn to speak? I always tell them that maybe that 1 hour of Sesame Street they watched every morning must have done the trick. They never needed speech therapy. Just like you, I can't really explain it. It's just natural. Amazing. So now I'm excited to shift gears to talk about your article comparing 2 worlds. This is far from a fluff piece. You really went into depth comparing Harry Potter's Hogwarts and the deaf world. My first question to you, would you mind telling me more about your article, Understanding Harry Potter, Parallels to the Deaf World, and how this concept emerged for you?
So, I'll try to keep the commentary brief. because I could easily talk about this at great length. But I think at the heart of the Harry Potter book series, as I was reading them, I was able to see how the experiences in the story had commonalities with the deaf world. It's interesting. There's a separate school, the experience of marginalization, being perceived as weird or different. Within the magical world itself, there are varied experiences. There are some who grew up experiencing that world, and others who are new and still trying to find their footing. Some succeed, some do not. Those parallels are apparent. So that discussion, honestly, started between my wife and me. There was this realization that deaf children could, and perhaps even really need to understand, the deaf experience through the deaf lens. This can give them a lot. For deaf children, deaf people's contributions to a true, intimate understanding can make a difference because of that deaf experience. So as it happened, I began finding these parallels. I think that was part of my motivation behind the camps. I've worked to start literacy camps, the first being in Pennsylvania at Scranton School for the Deaf, my old school. Starting there, I realized there was this successful formula because the camp itself is designed to use the Harry Potter books to help the kids better understand their own experiences as deaf children. It gives them more access to the story with the deaf lens on it. This brings a more intimate understanding about Harry Potter's experience through the story, and as a result, they're able to enjoy that kind of literature more. That deaf experience parallel is there, and when deaf children believe that, they feel it is authentically their own story. It's very cool. So we run these camps and bring it to many different states. Maybe 7 or 8 at this point. Every experience has been really neat because of the kids and how they can believe. I really feel like J.K. Rowling, the author, must have had deaf people in her family. It seems impossible for her to have written that book without a deaf connection. Several of the kids have written her letters or sent her emails. No one has heard back yet, but we still wonder. How? And I think another cool thing is that the children themselves have begun to find parallels that I hadn't noticed. They found them on their own, which speaks to how invested they are in their comprehension. This all points to motivation for literacy, and their motivation in general. What's most significant is how they own it. Generally, we as human beings are storytelling animals. We love stories, and we need stories. I don't feel we humans can survive without them.
Yeah.
Right? Once deaf kids find a story that feels like theirs, it ignites something in them. Something that's for me, so that's the idea.
Agreed.
That motivation. So there you have it.
Right. And I love how the world in general celebrates Harry Potter. People love his world, and now we can say, let's celebrate the deaf experience in deaf schools. I love that. It's beautiful. As a teacher myself, I always say it's best to tell stories. They may not remember the lessons, but they will remember the stories. So it's an important strategy. Now, you make mention of Muggles and wizards in your article. Can you elaborate more on that analogy and how it parallels the deaf world?
So in the books, there's something called the wizarding world. And as the story goes, most people know nothing about it. What? We have wizards? Impossible. But as people discover the wizarding world, they learn that those in the world refer to them as Muggles. Again, what? Muggles? What does that even mean? It's interesting. The deaf kids at camp came up with this sign for the wizarding world, and the inverse of that sign for Muggles.
How cool. I love that.
They're opposites. Magic and Muggle. There's no negative connotation there, though it is in alignment with the deaf experience. There is a deaf world that most hearing people know nothing about. There is deaf culture and community that isn't understood. Then hearing people learn that they're referred to as such, and they don't get it.
Yes.
There's a famous story of a professor at Gallaudet named Dirksen Baumann, who once opened his lecture saying, "I'm Dirksen, and I became hearing at age 23. People were like, "Huh? You became hearing?" He explained that he worked at Colorado School for the Deaf with no knowledge of the deaf world going in as a dorm supervisor. He was labeled as hearing straight away. He didn't know he was hearing until he was 23, even though he always had been. It's the same principle with Muggles. They don't know they're Muggles until they're faced with the wizarding world.
Perfect.
So the experience of that parallel can help illustrate how deaf people organize their world differently, hidden in plain sight. The wizarding world organizes the world differently as well. Different doesn't mean wrong or weird. It just means different. And that's nice for us to see. People often enjoy that kind of organization. I think that's a good example.
Yes. I love it. Thank you. When we talk about Harry Potter's experience in the Muggle world, it reminds me of being deaf in a hearing environment. And that can bring up the sensitive topic of LRE, or least restrictive environment. Could you talk more about why that's a sensitive topic and the parallels you brought up in your article?
Oh, sure. I think the LRE conversation is an important one for us when it comes to placement for deaf children. Appropriate placement determines long-term success very often, right? Figuring out how and where that environment will be to help deaf kids thrive. Where can they get access and so much more that they'll need to succeed? That's crucial. Sometimes the power of allegory. The Harry Potter series is a basic allegory, right? We're talking about if you have something different, something that's never been noticed. What does that experience teach us? That's a powerful thing for many in the community. Wishing they had something like what Harry Potter had, or wishing they had something like Hogwarts, or something like that community. This is an allegory that's easy for us to swallow and accept. Because there's no threat in doing so. It's just a story to consume, right? Anyone who consumes Harry Potter's story can conclude that if you go to a different school, where people acknowledge your differences, celebrate those differences, and provide role models, an environment, and a critical mass of friendships, it's easy to understand that person is worth something. All these aspects of you make you awesome. These experiences allow Harry Potter to thrive. That wasn't the case before when he wasn't thriving at all. He suffered. He didn't know who he was. Until he found his place, his people, and his LRE. Everyone who watches the Harry Potter movies or reads the books will see that. And just like the deaf world, yes, there are sometimes sensitive topics, but maybe they don't have to be. We accept Harry Potter right away and we root for him. Deaf people, less so. It's not that they should be separated from the real world in order to truly function. Think about the formula for success. Peers, language, role models, celebrating identity, an academic approach that suits visual learning, all of this. They don't teach how to make magic potions at a regular school, right? They don't have that, and they don't understand it. It's the same principle of what deaf schools have, classes that allow for access to visual learning. So I think the concept of LRE can be less sensitive if we use that kind of allegory to better paint the picture.
Yes, I can relate to that on a personal level. Once I joined Washington School for the Deaf in 5th grade, I bloomed so much. I got involved in a lot. I became a cheerleader. I became president of Junior NAD. And with all of that, my confidence went through the roof. I think as a teacher of the year right now, my origins here are one of the biggest contributors to my growth, definitely.
I couldn't agree more.
So, to quote your article, no matter how hard people try to ignore the culture, language, and power of a strong community, it does not disappear. Can you explain more? That's a powerful quote from your article, so I'd like to talk more about that.
I think often there's a kind of mentality that's been born out of experiences of generations and generations of attempts at how to find a place for deaf people in a hearing world. I truly do not believe it comes from a place of evil or malice. I think it comes from misunderstanding, an assumption of loneliness, and this insistence on normalcy, having access to these normal things. So there are these generations of repeated attempts, and yet this deaf world is still standing. No matter what happens, the deaf world finds a way. Despite these attempts of, you shouldn't limit yourself to a different world. That isn't what's going on. You're contributing something, adding something to the world. We need to shift that lens, and hopefully, as we continue to grow, develop, and expand awareness, we'll notice the power of diversity. There's a powerful potential there. Would you agree? Diversity isn't just a buzzword. There's no need to cheer our own idea of wokeness. Rather, diversity is essential. If you have diversity, you have different kinds of ideas, solutions, and this potential to help all of us solve problems instead of struggling through them. The deaf world has so much to offer. So that's where we can make a shift. Instead of saying no, we can engage in what deaf people can contribute. What's the advantage? So I hope we continue moving in that direction, and I do think we are, honestly. Life for deaf people has never been better than it is today. Today is better than yesterday, which was better than 3 days ago. The deaf world. Yes, there are problems, but notably here in America, access and potential for deaf people has never been better. I think we're moving in that direction. I hope anyway.
I think so too. I think people are starting to be more open in their attitude and their hearts. They're more ready and curious, I'm noticing, and that's great.
You, Dana, are the perfect example. You're a teacher of the year, you're deaf, and eyes are on you. Could that have happened 20 or 30 years ago? Not a chance.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a recognition of how much you have to contribute. And part of your job is to spread the good word. And congratulations, by the way. I haven't said that yet. What an awesome, immense honor. Congratulations to you.
Yes, thank you. As you know, the mirror of Erised is a magical mirror. Dumbledore states that only the happiest people are the ones who see their reflection, emphasizing the importance of a strong identity. How does this apply to deaf people? And what does it say about the importance of identity within the deaf community?
Oh yeah, that really is a great part of the book. It paints a great picture. Erised is the word desire backwards.
Oh,
That's the point of the mirror. It's the reflection of desire.
I didn't know that.
You see things in a mirror backwards, right? This concept is quite profound. The idea that if you look into the mirror and your reflection matches exactly who you are, then your desire aligns with the real world. That may not be common, though, and not just for deaf people. Too often, people look in the mirror and wish it were something different. But my hopes are not who I am, and neither are my wants. Point being, can we reinforce all people? The deaf world teaches us this great lesson. You are good enough. Nobody's perfect, but everyone has a valuable set of skills. I was just talking with my deaf son about this, and my point was this very idea. My son has his skills and he has his challenges. It's easy for him to sometimes fixate on what he's lousy at. But I tell him that what you have, what you're great at, and who you are is absolutely amazing. It's awesome. You must cherish yourself for that. I think there's this perceived danger, this challenge among deaf children that they'll be looked at as not enough. And they want to be as hearing as possible. They see it reflected in their mirror of Erised, wanting to be whatever the case may be. In truth, that deaf identity must be embraced because that identity is amazing. There are so many positive attributes to contribute to the world. And so much to learn from the deaf world, but you must see yourself as worthy of it. When that reflection matches, that's a success. I think we have to work really hard to make sure we're fostering an environment to encourage that. Again, that goes back to LRE. This is something public schools just don't know. Not in an evil, vengeful way, but they don't know. They cannot build it. It's hard. Deaf schools have that capability for LRE because there are role models. People like you who have had these experiences. You get it. So anyway, I think this does come back to you. It's that work for kids to see themselves in that mirror more than in other environments.
Right, I agree.
That was a long answer. I'm sorry.
No, that was beautiful. I struggle even in this day and age. I still sometimes feel like I'm not enough or that I'm still a burden, especially when I'm around people who are impatient and they feel they shouldn't have to write with me to communicate with me. I feel this need to apologize, but it's like, why am I feeling this way? So that's a big issue, and also why it's important to celebrate deaf identity. Thank you. Okay. So we already covered identity a bit. And now I'd like to briefly touch on some politically correct terminology in connection with the deaf community. What kind of identifiers should we refrain from using, Like deaf mute, hearing impaired, etc. What's okay and what's not okay? Would you mind elaborating on that?
So I'll mention again that I'm hearing. So it's a bit difficult for me to determine which labels are good or bad.
Fair enough.
What I do know is the idea in the hearing community of hard of hearing, hearing impaired. When it comes to disability, I think the world should know what they can or shouldn't say. But that doesn't reflect the deaf experience, right? It's always best to ask the deaf person themselves what they prefer and go with that. I think that's the best approach, because even within the deaf community, there are varied preferences between groups. The deaf world in its totality has intersectional identities within. And that's a good thing. It's wonderful. And again, those in the deaf community have different things they can contribute to the deaf world and beyond. So I think the best people to answer for what the right label is deaf people themselves. You'll know better than me.
Perfect. That's a big message I have as I'm traveling. First, to affirm, normalize, celebrate, embrace, and support. Then secondly, to ask. If you're unsure, just ask and don't assume. That's the key, right? Because identities evolve. For me, I love to identify myself as capital D deaf. Because for me, I'm proud to be deaf. From a cultural standpoint. I don't see deafness as hearing loss or as small d deaf. That's perfect. It's good to mention the importance of asking. That's the key. Now it's time to wrap up. So let's circle back to magic. If you could create a world of pure magic for deaf and hard of hearing people, what would that look like? What do you think?
A world in general, or one specifically for deaf and hard of hearing people?
A world for deaf and hard of hearing people. What would that look like to you?
I like that question.
I'll get your perspective and then I'll share mine too.
Okay. I think lately, I've been involved with some work with a group at Gallaudet University. It's the Gesture Literacy Knowledge Studio, run by Ben Behan. We've been working together on a project that was founded at Boston University in collaboration with the Gesture Literacy Knowledge Studio. It's designed to figure out how we can promote a connection between parents and families and their deaf child or children, notably for hearing families. So your question makes me think about, well, what can we imagine? Of course, we wish everyone knew how to sign. We have plenty of wishes for this perfect world. For the real world, though, I don't know. An imaginative answer is sometimes not helpful, but I believe this might tie into your intention a bit more. This project is based on Ben's work and his extensive thinking on the role of gestures. He studied this in depth and certainly knows a lot more than I do about this idea, but it points to human language in general. From its very origin, there has been gestural communication. This then evolved into a signed language. Then came along this divergence in the development of hearing and speaking. That gestural part, though, is where it all started, because it's visual. It's full access across different groups of people. Communicating, you, me, go there, by pointing or indicating pain. Whatever the case would have been, it's easy to understand. So Ben's point here is saying that gesturing is the foundation of language. There's a visual foundation, and it's still here. We still use it. Some cultures more than others. Some cultures do avoid gestures, and that's fine. But other cultures embrace it. Italians are passionate in their gestural communication like this. You can see different kinds of gestures on a global scale. And another point of Ben's is that the recognition of this foundation is crucial. And perhaps we can start to build bridges across cultures for the purpose of basic human communication. That's easy to understand, but how? Visual communication must become more recognized, and that's certainly a wish of mine. Can we encourage people to understand? Why not figure out a way toward engagement with each other? Our project is designed to help parents who are learning ASL. But learning ASL takes a long time. Suppose you're a parent who is still in the process of learning. How do you engage with your child in the meantime? You can still communicate in human ways. Imagine you have a card that says, "You need to get a carton of milk." You want to ask your child if they want milk, but you don't know the sign for milk or drink or anything. You give it some thought and decide to point to your child, then grab the carton of milk. Then you point to something white, act out a cow, and do what you need to do so your child understands. That isn't a language. I want to emphasize that. But the point is
access.
Right. Access and engagement with your child. Kids need that connection. They need that stimulation. And parents need to feel free to say no. Figure it out. And they will learn ASL, hopefully. But we give them permission, or provide them with a key to open their potential. All of us have that as humans. It's in the fabric of our origins. Every last one of us. If we're saying, "Go, go," why do we do this gesture? What about no? Why do we do that? Because it's there. It just goes unnoticed. Big and small, unease, even something smelling bad. It's innate. But I think my wish is that the world at large would recognize the power of visual communication and have more willingness to engage with deaf people, especially deaf children, because that engagement stimulates brain and language development. That emotional connection tells kids that their parents and families want to engage with them. So make that effort.
That connection, absolutely.
Right. Then that foundation leads to signing. It's not as big of a jump as you might think to describe milk in gestures and then having the sign for milk. And that jump is easier if parents have an open mind to gesturing. Anyway, that's my wish. The recognition that all of us are visual. We have that potential, and we should take advantage of that more than we have previously.
Agreed. Beautifully said. A relationship happens when we have communication. How can we have communication if we don't have access to it? It's the same for me. If I could dream of something magical, it's not about creating new technology or anything like that. It starts with the heart. It's the attitude and openness to new ideas and learning a new language. Be open to giving people access. That creates a foundation.
Yeah, I like your sign for openness. And here's another example. In spoken English, that phrase is, "be open." So that makes sense. I understand the metaphor, but there's power in that visual of opening your heart.
Open your heart, yes.
It means something different. Hearing people can understand that, even though it's a sign. Open your heart. It's more meaningful. It's deeper. It means something more than just being open. Another example is if we open both our minds and our hearts. Wow, the deaf world gives us so much.
Open hearts, open minds, and open doors for more opportunities.
You should print that on a t-shirt. They'll sell.
I'd be rich with that career change. Todd, thank you so much for your time. I've enjoyed this wonderful chat with you.
I'm honored you asked me to join you here. I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing the final product. Congratulations again. You're representing Washington State, but also the world. Amazing job.
And thank you for your work as well. Okay, thank you so much for joining me as we considered what that magical world might look like. I hope you were able to learn something about what makes the world accessible, inclusive, And of course, magical for deaf and hard of hearing students. Thank you. Goodbye.